Okay. I hope this is working and I hope you can hear me okay. It is great to see you. God bless you. If you did click on this video, I really appreciate it. Just so you are aware, this is a posted live stream. I go live every single morning except Sundays. I go live in the afternoon on Sundays. So we've been doing this for a long time. I plan on doing it every single day for the whole year. And you guys have made these live streams very successful, and the videos have been a lot of fun too. So I appreciate all of your support. Make sure to please like this video, turn on your notifications, leave a comment, or subscribe if you want to be a part of the live streams. It helps you to see the live streams when they get posted. I think YouTube sends you a notification. And thank you everybody for joining. Good to see you guys. Thank you so much, everybody. All right, so we have a lot to cover. President Trump reiterating, I don't care who you are. If you've done something heinous as an illegal immigrant, like a bad crime, he wants you deported. And if not, it doesn't make a difference to the president. I think the president now feels very confident in the polls, in the American reaction as far as how Americans feel about illegal immigrants, whether Democrat or Republican. This seems to be across the board in favor for the Trump administration. You guys have probably been seeing polls and stats all week, no matter who you've been watching. The Trump administration got another big win. Attorney General Pam Bondi announcing tonight, our Justice Department secured yet another crucial legal victory in support of the President Trump's immigration agenda. The Fifth Circuit just held illegal aliens can rightfully be detained without bond. So we'll get into that. You guys hear about the whole J.D. Vance, a man was threatening to take his life? That happened just less than 24 hours ago. U.S. Secret Service had to go after this man. We're also going to go, we're also going to talk about, of course, Minnesota. Governor Tim Walz had some protesters walk up on his house. That's not the clip. Yeah, we're going to talk about that. Governor Tim Walz, some people not too happy with cooperation that's happening. And I think today there's going to be quite a ruckus in Minneapolis. I see some people referencing Jake Lang, and I think somebody else. I think Jake Lang has his own press conference that will be occurring, and some other pro-ICE protesting, I guess, is what we can call that. Homeland Security calling out Mr. Gavin Newsom. We're going to talk about this as well. Calling on Newsom to, what they're saying is, I am urgently calling on Newsom to agree to not release the 33,000 criminal illegal aliens. Newsom is saying, we follow the laws. What are you talking about? Then he gets called out. That's a lie. We'll talk about that. We're also going to talk about Spencer Pratt. We've been covering this race on this channel. This really intrigues me. Spencer Pratt running for the mayor of Los Angeles. This is not an endorsement. Don't get it twisted. But he's okay with working with ICE. And he calls out what happens when you don't work with ICE. And again, not an endorsement, but I think he is making a talking point that might win him his election. I'm just going to be honest with you. So we will get to that. We'll get to a bunch of reactions from members of Congress. For whatever reason, the timing might just be, a lot of members of Congress decided to visit ICE detention facilities, and they're all saying they either got denied or, along those lines. But we had like 4 or 5 members of Congress all of a sudden visit ICE detention facilities. So yeah, we have a lot to cover. Let's just go ahead and start with the president. Here's what he has to say. This is audio only. I apologize. But again, reiterating that deportations are going to be the mass deportations he's been talking about, especially for 2026.
A number of people in the MAGA base say they aren't satisfied with the administration just focusing on deporting violent criminals. That they.
Who are you with?
I'm Natalie Ellison with the Washington Post.
Washington, but you're having a hard time getting readers. Washington Post is doing very poorly. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think you guys are aware, or if you're not, the Washington Post had a lot of people get fired. I think like the entire sports section or like 99.9% of the sports section was like terminated?
Have a very bad attitude. Go ahead.
Well, a number of people in your base say that they want to see all illegal immigrants deported, even ones who are
Let me tell you
otherwise
about my
non-violent.
base. Let me tell you about my base. My base has never been stronger. My base is me and other very good people that love our country. And if you talk about my base or the MAGA base, you could call it a lot of America First base. They couldn't be more thrilled.
Yeah, the premise of the question also intrigues me. She's saying or implying there are some of your supporters are not happy with the number of deportations. I'm not going to go through the numbers and the polling again. We've done that like in the last 3 shows. The numbers heavily favor the president. There's just no denying it. Even on CNN, they're like, guys, like, I don't know what we're supposed to do here. These are the numbers. And so to imply that some of your supporters, I mean, we're talking about a number that is so not significant to the president. This is why he's answering it this way. I mean, we can even do our own poll here. And guess what? A lot of Democrats also are supporting deportations. Now, the polls suggest that they don't support ICE, but they support the fact that if you come into the country illegally, that's a crime. So there's a lot more Democrats who actually agree with deportations than people realize. We'll do our own poll. By a show of hands, you guys can type the number 1. Are you satisfied with what's happening? Are you okay with the mass deportations?
Crime down to the lowest level that it's been in 125 years. We have a border that's totally closed. We have all the things that our base wanted, and we have the best economy in history. Prices are down. We inherited very high prices and the highest inflation in the history of our country. Think of it, the highest, or 48 years. Some people say 48 years, but I'll take either one. So my base is very happy.
But would you support mass deportations of people who are otherwise law-abiding?
I want to see everybody, but we're focusing on the criminals. We're focusing on killers. We're focusing, but ultimately, they all broke the law. Some can, if they do.
Again, I hate to keep interrupting. The premise of this is just not lining up with what Americans feel. Are you also going to focus on people who came into the country illegally but not breaking the law? You can see how that's a little bit of a contradiction. And again, we can cross-reference the polling and the stats all day. Even from a left-leaning political standpoint, this premise just does not hold up to what Americans want.
Law-abiding.
I want to see everybody, but we're focusing on the criminals. We're focusing on killers. We're focusing, but ultimately, they all broke the law. Some can, if they do it in a certain way, they can go out, they can come back if they do it properly. But as you know, a lot of people have been deported, a lot. But the focus is on the murderers, the drug dealers. We have many people mentally insane. They dumped everything in our country.
And I think this is like the 4th day in a row someone from the Trump administration had to reiterate this point. Tom Homan, maybe like 3 days in a row, Tom Homan has had to come on television and say, we want to focus on the really, really bad guys. However, if we are in an area and there's also an illegal immigrant who may have done nothing wrong other than come into the country illegally, I cannot look the other way. So again, maybe there's just confusion in the messaging. Maybe people are not taking this serious, but I don't know. I sound like a broken record. I feel like we can just watch our whole last live stream and I can just make the same talking point. Because every single day, this seems to be the talking point. Now, this helps out the president a lot. The Fifth Circuit just held illegal aliens can rightfully be detained without bond. A significant blow against activist judges who have been undermining our efforts to make America safe again at every turn. This is posted by Attorney General Pam Bondi. Thank you to Ben Hayes, who argued this case. Brett Shoemate, in the DOJ Civil Division, we will continue vindicating President Trump's law and order agenda in courtrooms across the country. Now, real quick, we don't have a lot of news on this J.D. Vance story, and then we'll move on. This is a pretty significant story, but whenever stuff like this happens, I think many of you are aware, when the Secret Service gets involved and somebody is threatening to take a politician's life, you're told the bare minimum. And recently, apparently this man, U.S. Secret Service arrested an Ohio man for allegedly threatening to take out Vice President J.D. Vance, assassination, by tracking his location and shooting him with an M14. Yeah, this is some serious stuff. So he's been arrested, and I've done a bunch of research on this. This is quite literally all the facts everybody has. We don't know anything else other than the other crimes he has done according to his record. He has pled not guilty to both counts and remains in custody pending a detention hearing. So if I had more facts for you, I would report it for you guys, but that's all I got on that. And again, God bless all of you. I'm really appreciative for you guys being here. And I hope you guys don't mind the morning slot time show. This show doesn't have a name. It's just the morning show with you guys. So thank you guys again. And if you guys want to leave a like, that helps a ton. Subscribe, notifications, all the things help out a lot. Okay, so let us move on to Minnesota. And then we got a bunch of other stuff. So Trisha McLaughlin recently posted this. When you watch agitators assault, swarm, and obstruct law enforcement, here are just a few of the dangerous criminals they are protecting. We have a sex offender in Minneapolis, Mahad. Yusuf committed a series of horrific crimes, including a conviction for criminal sexual conduct in the first degree. ICE attempted to arrest Yusuf, but the apartment manager obstructed federal law enforcement agents by preventing them from entering the building, actively protecting this known convicted offender. Again, you guys might notice it's nearly every single day. The Trump messaging, or the Trump administration's messaging, is not only honing in on the specific criminals they're going after, but also this idea of prevention, getting in the way. Luis Jesus Acosta Gutierrez, a criminal illegal alien from Venezuela and suspected member of Tren de Aragua, officers attempted to conduct a vehicle stop, at which point Acosta resisted arrest by intentionally ramming an officer's vehicle into a tree. Then fled on foot and barricaded himself into an apartment of a person he did not know. Now, I will say, I actually covered this case. This happened about a week before the whole federal surge. And let me tell you something, not a lot of people were focusing on this story or really cared about it at all. And so, yeah, there's always been a lot of action happening in Minneapolis, but now, of course, after the Nick Shirley video and some other things that have been happening, more eyes are on these stories. So this is actually an older story, but it is what it is. Thank you for the generosity, the $5 donation from Borna Hawkeye. God bless Charlie Kirk, and always say prayer to Jesus Christ. He will be there for you. Love from Tampa. And yes, thank you for that message. And we always seek prayers. All right, moving on. Again, consistent messaging coming from Minneapolis. Businesses complaining that their businesses are doing really bad because of the federal surge. Now, interesting enough, this was actually reposted by Kamala Harris's Gen Z media page. However, we have some indicators that Kamala Harris actually is doing pretty decent in the polls, which might suggest we might see a Kamala Harris run for presidency. We'll get to that after the Minnesota stuff. We have a poll of Kamala versus Gavin Newsom. But let's get to this.
Our businesses are short-staffed, short-changed, and overextended. We're providing mutual aid at the expense of our own stability, our own families, our own paychecks, and our own futures. My co-founder and I stopped by a restaurant on our street and ended up filling to-go orders for them because more than 50% of his staff is gone. Afraid to come to work for fear of being taken by ICE, even as U.S. citizens, even with work permits, even with the right paperwork. My friend Jason from Hikari Hand Rolls lost thousands when fresh bluefin tuna was delivered and sat outside for 2 days while his building remained closed as ICE invaded Nicollet. The cost of supplies continues to rise while he's lost 80% of revenue in the last month.
These are the numbers that keep circulating. I've already done like 4 videos on this specific topic. The numbers usually you'll hear like I've had a 50% decrease in revenue or as high as 80%. And again, I'm sure you guys are noticing it. No matter who you're watching, eventually you're probably going to hear this talking point. I think it was just 2 days ago, the mayor said this exact same thing, and Governor Tim Walz also posted about this.
Christian from Ellison reminded me that this violence isn't new. It's been ongoing. ICE has been terrorizing our communities long before this moment, and Ellison has had 2 restaurants remaining closed for up to 2 months because the staff cannot safely come to work. At the Coven, we've lost thousands in revenue because ICE continues to terrorize Nicollet, even as our community mourns Alex Preddy on the corner. Business owners are stepping up, providing mutual aid and protecting one another, and trying to stay open because our community really does need us. But let me be clear, many of these businesses don't have months. They have weeks. If they close, if these buildings sit empty, if this cultural corridor goes dark, it's not just bad for business. It's a devastating blow to the future of Minnesota.
Okay, so you guys can let me know how you feel about that. I'm just simply trying to show you every single time I do research into Minneapolis, a new clip seems to pop up with this same exact talking point from the top down, whether it's a governor, advocate, business owner, mayor. And I have to play this video for you guys. Okay, so this is Minneapolis Councilwoman Aisha Katai. I'm going to let her speak for herself. This is a Minneapolis city councilor. And again, it's great to see all of you. Thank you guys again for being here. Here's what she had to say. And I'm going to be honest with you, we haven't been hearing too much from the Minneapolis City Council. At the very beginning of these operations, some of them were like in the protest. Or we would see snippets of like staff members of the city councilors. Or some city councilors were on TikTok and talking about what's happening. It's actually quite difficult to find messaging from city councilors, but here's a clip.
At as early as 6 o'clock, just less than a day after Tom Homan announced that there would be an end to roving patrols and
I don't think Tom Homan said we're not going to do roving patrols, by the way. I am almost positive. I know there's an expert in here. If your name is Kim Katie, I saw you in the chat. Kim Katie is probably one of the leading experts in knowing every single quote. I saw you in the chat. You can verify this maybe. I don't remember Tom Homan ever saying we're not going to do roving patrols. He did say we're going to focus on criminals, but that...
to roving patrols, and that there'd be a reduction in the number of agents that were going to each or carrying out these quote unquote targeted operations, which we clearly see over the course of the last 2 days that's not been the case. But and this morning, so early, dozens of my neighbors were woken up.
Kim Katie says, I'm no expert, but he never said that. Yeah. So that's what I was thinking. I've never heard him say that.
Because ICE agents broke down an apartment building's door, and 24 agents went in and arrested a woman that was our neighbor, and it's just we're continuing to experience tragedy after tragedy right now, and I just want to hold some space for my constituents, for all of your constituents. Honestly, we're all living through this together, and
now I do want to point out, generally speaking, not generally, but really, if a Homeland Security officer is breaking through windows and entering into a residence, there is a strong indication that there is a warrant involved or there is a targeted arrest. If not, that person, agent, can get in a lot of trouble, or there better be circumstances that warrant it. But let us get to this. So this is going to be from Frontline's TPUSA. Governor Tim Walz is, are we calling it a mansion? His house? it got protested.
Rapunzel, Rapunzel, throw down your support for your voting base.
Come on. You have a lot of lights on. Dinner's got to be done by now. We haven't heard from you in a very long time.
Okay, we got some more clips. This was the morning time. Again, this is going to be from Frontline's TPUSA, just to give them some credit for being out there. We appreciate it. And here's what's happening out here. Now, it was about a week ago, Governor Tim Walz did approach these protesters, and there's a famous clip where he's like leaning on the fence and talking to them. But yeah, people are back now, and I think they want some answers.
Who Tim Walz really is. This is a man who, in 2020, immediately after the burning of the 3rd Precinct, authorized deadly force against mostly black and brown protesters, who threatened to shoot us in the street like dogs after curfew. I remember that I was rendering first aid to a teenager along University after the 35W truck incident.
Now, keep in mind, the Trump administration keeps saying, yeah, we have some we have cooperation is a better word. We have cooperation. We've had good talks. And then shortly after, now we have protesters in front of his house.
And a National Guardsman came up to me and the person that I was medicing with and threatened to kill us for being out after curfew with a smile on his face. And the reason that I'm bringing this up is because this time, because more of our white community members are out in the streets, there has not been the same level of violence towards protesters from Tim Walz's controlled National Guard. And the reason for this is that Tim Walz only sees some of our lives as worth saving, only sees some of our lives as worth protecting. Because if he saw black life as worth protecting, he would have put guardrails on the police in this state who have been murdering black people and brown people and native people in this state the entire time before.
All right, so those are very big accusations, but again, the main point of that really is this is being done in front of his house. And again, this is Frontline's TPUSA asking one of the protesters, like, what's the point of all of this? And here's what he has to say. You guys can let me know how you feel about all of this.
What would be your message to Tim Walz right now?
I mean, I just wanted him to come on and talk to us. I mean, that's really it. Like, tell us what's going on, at least be a little transparent. We're transparent what we're asking for, so I just think he should be transparent back.
And do you feel as if Tim Walz has completely went against the left and the people that got him elected in the first place?
That's what it seems like right now. And I mean, but again, we don't know. I think we're just...
So again, we can't say that this person speaks for everybody out there. However, I'm just giving you guys the sequence of events. 2 weeks ago, there was a lot of back and forth as far as like clashing, politically speaking. Not happy with the messaging from the Trump administration, from Governor Tim Walz, from Mayor Frey. Then Chief Bovino, he's out. 700 Border Patrol out. Then we get the messaging from Homan and Mr. President Trump. We had good conversations. We just want some sort of cooperation. Moving forward, then we see a little more support from police officers on the ground. You guys remember those checkpoints we've been seeing pop up here and there in Minneapolis? Those started to get removed. So again, we are seeing some instances of cooperation. Even Tom Homan said we're seeing a lot more of this transfers as far as people in the jail systems. And so again, I don't know if this is 100% the reason why protesters are showing up, but this person seems to think, he just wants to know why Governor Tim Walz might be turning on some of the talking points we heard just 2 weeks ago.
And the people that got him elected in the first place?
That's what it seems like right now. And I mean, but again, we don't know. I think we're just speculating, but it'd be nice to hear from him because it appears that way. Having ICE show up to the government center and arrest two people that were meeting with their attorneys yesterday is a completely escalation, in my opinion.
And in your opinion, what can he do to mend what has been broken right now to make things right?
For me personally, it would just be transparent. Either way, be transparent with us. I think that's what I would look for.
Okay. So that was last night. Again, Frontline's TPUSA. If you guys want to go give them a follow, they were out there covering that, documenting it, and we will be paying attention to see if there are more protesters who show up outside his residence. This video is circulating. I think you guys might know who this is. He was recently arrested, very high-profile case and person. This is a 8-second clip. I will let the clip speak for itself. Yeah, so that is circulating. As far as spitting on the camera, that was posted by Andy No and Katie Davis Court on X. Now, just a quick reminder, if you don't know who that was or what is going on, just real quick.
Hi, Liz. Well, the Justice Department is using this as an example right here, showing people that if you threaten ICE officers, there's going to be serious consequences. So this self-described Antifa member is now hit with federal charges because of disturbing videos that he made on social media. We'll show you those in a few moments. But first, this is him right here, Kyle Wagner. He is accused of repeatedly posting on Facebook and Instagram, encouraging his followers to confront and assault federal officers who he called the Gestapo and murderers. Federal officials arrested him yesterday, and you could see right here he's proudly wearing a hoodie with "I'm Antifa."
It should be noted, because Fox News is not showing the video or the clip, there were protesters in the building and outside of the building questioning what's happening here. And if you watch the raw footage, you can quite literally hear whistles and people being upset that windows were smashed to get inside of this apartment building.
Plastered right across it. The criminal complaint describes the threats against ICE. We obtained some of those videos so you can watch it here for yourself.
This is where ICE has come to die.
Not talking about peaceful protests anymore. We're not talking about having polite conversations anymore. Get your guns and stop these people.
Yeah.
Yeah, Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche posting, quote, "Conspire and threaten to assault, kill, and dox officers, and you will find yourself in federal custody facing the full force of justice." Yesterday, anti-ICE protesters.
Okay, so yeah, just that was just a quick recap in case you were unaware of what some of those clips were. And again, if you are new here, we are massive advocates for peace. We do try to look at all sides, bring it together, and try and figure out what's happening. So if you're about that life, make sure to please subscribe, and God bless all of you as well. I really appreciate all of you guys. This was actually posted by Kim Katie USA, if she is still here. Thank you for posting this. If you want to go give her a follow. Kim Katie was able to find a clip as far as what is it like to get detained or if you resist ICE orders.
Someone, Ryan Eklund, tells us that he had just dropped off a kid at school. He had headed over to the grocery store to pick up some things when he noticed pretty clearly an ICE vehicle that was just kind of patrolling in the parking lot there. And so he started following them from a safe distance, recording them as well.
I mean, I do say this a lot, but I just have to say it. This is becoming a lot more normal, this idea of legal observer. In 2025, the word legal observer was not circulating as far as identifying these actions. The wording that was used in 2025 was ICE trackers or ICE watchers. Now, legal observer has really bled into the ecosystem of this is the action I take. If I'm following ICE from a safe distance, I am a legal observer.
They eventually noticed him, and they had 3 interactions with him. The first one, they kind of boxed him into a parking space. They came up to him. It was kind of a, "Hey, how are you?" But they were photographing his face and his car. And then the second interaction, they stopped him and came up there and said, "This is your one warning. If you keep following us, we're going to arrest you." And he said, "I'm allowed to follow you and record you, so I'm going to keep doing it." And then the third interaction, they actually followed through on that threat.
You've been warned that you're continuing to follow us and you're breaking a lot of...
Oh, no. Hell no. Nope.
We warned you, sir.
Nope. One of those ICE agents went into the back seat, gave me a chokehold around the driver's headrest, unbuckled my seatbelt from behind me in my car, and those 5 agents pulled me to the street, put me in cuffs, and put me in an unmarked van. And
Okay, Corin, so then what happened from there?
And just so you guys are aware, the mass majority of clips that we cover with instances like that, ICE typically do give a warning, and we'll just say if you follow us, you need to follow from a safe distance, or we'll just give an indication that we are watching you. Almost never do I remember seeing a clip where an ICE agent will just walk up to your window and smash the window. But the mass majority of the clips I have ever watched or presented to you guys has been, we're going to give you a warning, and then if there's no compliance, that's when we see like the smashed windows or people being detained. That is just my observation as I've gone through a lot of these clips.
Well, Simone, first off, you might have noticed in that soundbite there that he's got a scuffed up face and he's got a black eye, and he says that all happened right here in Woodbury at this location when the ICE agents forced him to the ground and kind of moved him around with their knees on him, etc. From there, he went over to Whipple, where he was detained for a little over 9 hours. He said he was kept in a cell that was specifically for male American citizens. When he was first there, he was all alone, but by the end of the night, there were several more folks like him in that detention cell.
Now, when he says like him, I don't know if he means like a man or if he's talking about like him in the sense of legal observers. But what we do know is that more and more legal observers are being arrested or warned to back up. And we do know that the Trump administration has indicated that if you are a federal agent and you do feel threatened, you are given the order to defend yourself or do what you need to do. And that was posted by the president, I think like a week ago. This would be a window of, we will just use the word legal observer just to stay consistent as far as what legal observer has developed into. In my opinion, I always thought legal observer were the people who wore those green hats at like a protest, or I am legally observing on your behalf if something happens. That's what I always thought a legal observer was, but again, now just for the sake of consistency, we will just refer to some of these people as legal observers. So this is one of their windows. Jesus. Okay. Moving forward. Oh, this is actually big. This is Representative James Comer. Posted on February 6th. He says, new, I'm demanding financial information from companies linked to Minnesota Representative Ilhan Omar's husband. Let me know what you guys think about this. His companies reportedly went from $51,000 to $30 million in 1 year, with zero investor information. So we want to know who's funding this and who's buying access. And here is the illegal document or government document talking about it. Again, a lot of pressure on Congresswoman Omar and her husband. And to my knowledge, there's already a formal investigation on one of the committees looking into this. Like I told you guys before at the beginning of the show, this talking point seems to be the main talking point we are going to keep hearing as far as opposition to the federal surge in Minnesota, and especially in Minneapolis and St. Paul. This is Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison had like a roundtable discussion with some business owners.
Well, it's good to see everybody, and I'd love to hear from all of y'all. I mean, quite honestly, this is just sort of something we...
And if you're wondering, what does he have to do with any of this? Why is he talking to business owners? Just so you guys are aware, when the documentation paperwork was put in to try and limit ICE or even restrict ICE in Minnesota, one of the biggest talking points legally had to do with we have such a drop in our economy because of the federal agents. So this could be he's just trying to show people this is what's going on. But keep in mind, that was one of the biggest arguments, even legally speaking, trying to put pressure to eliminate ICE from Minnesota.
To try to figure out what the impact on the state is. Has ever essentially sicked armed agents on a state like this. But the economic impact of all of this stuff is terrible.
This is like the worst. We had seen it. We know we went through the pandemic, we went through the riots, everything what happened. It was kind of manageable, but this was the worst.
All right, so we're not going to watch that whole thing. Just trying to show you guys, even Keith Ellison posting this. This was February 6th. This is pretty big. Well, this is in Maine, so I don't want to throw this into the Minnesota stuff. That's Dr. Oz. Sorry about that. Yeah, let's go here. Here's Peggy Flanagan, Lieutenant Governor of Minnesota. Here's what she had to say. She was also recently called out by Fox News and some other investigators for allegedly possibly being in some of these signal chats. We did a whole show on that, I think last week, and that's when Kash Patel acknowledged that we are aware of some of these chats and we are aware of some lines of communication that might possibly be occurring between officials. But here we go.
Even with the removal of 700, there will still be about 2,000 federal agents there.
It's incredibly disruptive. What is the most disruptive are the tactics that these folks use every day. So if there's, fewer ICE agents here, but they employ the same tactics, that's unacceptable. And I want to be clear, the federal government has laid this at our doorstep. And long after ICE agents have left Minnesota, they will need to restore, repair, and help heal what it is that they have broken. We have to claw back this $75 billion. And frankly, they have to restore what they have taken away from Minnesota's literal children and the chaos and fear that they have caused. ICE needs to be ripped apart and we have to start over.
Now, I wish we had a specific example so we can sort of dissect what her talking point was. As far as taking away from Minnesota, again, I don't know if she's speaking like literally or in an economic sense. I have no idea, but that's what she had to say recently. Now, you guys may have seen this. This is circulating. I want to really put a disclaimer out there. Remember, you are innocent until proven guilty, but this video is circulating on the internet. We might as well just play it. It does have to do with Don Lemon, who, as you guys know, was arrested here recently.
Arrest is drawing attention to what prosecutors say was Don Lemon's role in planning and recording the disturbing protest of demonstrators storming that Minnesota church service. A Temple University student has now surrendered on federal charges, admitting he helped Don Lemon with logistics and local contacts ahead of that anti-ICE protest.
And remember, the indictment quite literally says the exact same thing, that Mr. Lemon was privy to knowing what's happening, and this is why this story is a pretty big deal. All of a sudden, we have a student who's, according to them, saying that, I worked or I knew that Don Lemon would be here.
He helped Don Lemon with logistics and local contacts ahead of that anti-ICE protest. Jerome Richardson, a political science senior, turned himself in and is accused of conspiring to interfere with religious worship. Court records and social media posts show Richardson describing himself as assisting Don Lemon in the days leading up to the protest.
Now, to my understanding, this might be the only person who was involved with this protest who turned himself in. You guys can maybe fact check me on that, but so far I think that might be the only person who said, yeah, I was a part of it. Here I am. Maybe he saw the warnings, or he saw that Pam Bondi, the FBI, everybody was like, we will find every single person here.
Lemon, who claims he was just reporting, was arrested last week and released, but prosecutors say this new arrest undercuts that defense, suggesting planning and not just passive coverage. A new investigation reveals the network of anti-ICE agitators across Minneapolis was highly organized, well-funded, and carefully coordinated. The City Journal, which reported the original story about widespread Minnesota fraud last fall, published a new report which states a well-funded network of professional activists arranged and mapped out the demonstrations with a master plan to do the same in other cities.
Yeah, and so we will continue. But whenever I get like new Don Lemon news or whatever's happening with these with the church protest, as far as like procedural stuff, or if somebody else gets arrested, I will be covering that for you guys. So make sure to please subscribe, because we've been following that very closely. So okay, moving on from Minnesota to California. This is Secretary Kristi Noem calling out Gavin Newsom. As you guys know, the Trump administration has heavily been pushing this talking point as far as retainers. If you have an illegal immigrant in your prison system and they've done something really bad, let's work together, transfer them over, and then we will deal with the problem. Secretary Kristi Noem, I am urgently calling on Gavin Newsom to agree to not release the 33,179 criminal illegal aliens in California custody back into the public without notifying ICE. I strongly... Look, here's the thing, guys. Homeland Security has been doing this for a long time, calling out politicians, and they keep talking about how there are quite literally criminals who might get released back into the state. But now with all of the polling and the statistics to back up the Trump administration, I am not surprised we're seeing a lot more of this. These are all of the different crimes and the numbers associated with the individual of the crime that could potentially get released into California. Here's the actual document. Now, Gavin Newsom responded to Kristi Noem. California follows the law, and we work with ICE to remove violent criminals, not innocent families. What we especially don't do is play politics with public safety or spread misinformation. In response to that, this is official account of Bill Asali, First Assistant U.S. Attorney for the Central District of California. That's a lie. California state law prohibits county jails from handing over inmates to immigration authorities. It's illegal for them to honor a detainer even if they wanted to. Welcome to the confusion of sanctuary states, sanctuary cities. I always do my best to try and dig into what the talking points are, but in a lot of situations, you sort of just get at a standstill, and it's up to you guys to decide how you feel about it. You will always hear across the board, I am telling you right now, you will not hear a politician say, we don't want criminals on our, or what's a better way to say this? Across the board, every single person I've covered who's involved with sanctuary cities always says, we don't like criminals. You will hear that across the board. I have yet to hear one politician say, I love criminals. But where we get to the standstill is, okay, if you don't like criminals and they happen to be an illegal immigrant, why are you not wanting to work with us? And that's where we get to the standstill. But who knows, maybe it's out there. I have yet to hear a politician say that, where we like having criminals. But then again, the Trump administration's counterpoint is, if that's the case, let's work together. Now, I threw this in there. This is Congresswoman Ramirez. So basically, a letter was written to Secretary Noem, or an acknowledgement that we might want to impeach you. We want you fired. And Kristi Noem responded and said, I have received your December 3rd, 2025 letter requesting I resign from my position as Secretary of Homeland Security. Again, this is from Kristi Noem. Then she says, I serve at the pleasure of the President of the United States. As such, I will continue to do this job for as long as he desires. Denial is not just a river in Egypt, which is like a meme from TikTok. I don't think this is a joke to make memes about the severity of this position of Homeland Security. It is time to face the facts. Your days in public service are numbered. It is time for us to start our own impeachment proceedings. I told you guys this was going to happen. The impeachment proceedings are coming, so get ready for that. We will be paying attention to that.
Kristi Noem's advisor, Corey Lewandowski, if her job was at risk, and he didn't really completely deny it. Let's take a listen.
Will she be in the cabinet a month from now?
Listen, Ed, I've been around a long time in Trump world. Let me tell you something. It's a one-person decision. Everybody could be gone in a month from now. I think Kristi Noem has done a phenomenal job. Ultimately, it's the decision of the president, and I think it's very, very difficult for a person who has helped to implement the most difficult part of your agenda very successfully to leave this administration.
And what do you think of that answer and, Kristi Noem's job performance as you cover DHS?
By a show of hands, we'll do another vote here. Very informal vote. 1, if you think Kristi Noem is doing well, and 2, if you don't think she's doing well.
You know, I think the president is considering what to do moving forward. It certainly was very indicative that he had her attend a cabinet meeting last week, then did not let her speak. He could have asked her not to attend, spared her the humiliation, but instead he did what he did. And so I think...
Yeah, guys, I'm going to be honest with you. I don't see a single 2 there, which means, you know, this is a very... we have one of the most accurate polls you can get in the country in my chat. I appreciate all of you guys. Thank you. No, but for real, I don't see any indications. I don't want to lead you astray. If I had some sort of indication or felt like Kristi Noem might be in trouble, I will tell you guys. I don't have a problem with it. I think we deserve to know the truth. But across the board, this whole Kristi Noem might get fired or President Trump is not happy, I don't think that's the case at all. Despite, you know, maybe some pushback on the talking points from Kristi Noem after what occurred in Minneapolis. Despite that, there doesn't seem to be an issue. Now, I do want to show you guys this. We're technically still in California. Check this out.
Remember when Kamala ran for president, was in first place for a second, and then had to drop out before Iowa? Gavin might be on the same path. Kamala's destroying him by double digits, 34-20. Look at that.
I'm going to be honest with you, this shocks me. In yesterday's show, I said I think Gavin Newsom does a better job than Kamala Harris as far as media and talking points. These are not endorsements, people. Do not take this as the T-SPLY endorsement. We don't do that. But I guess the polls say otherwise. Maybe that's why Kamala Harris launched that new Gen Z media page on X. But yeah, apparently the polls are indicating Kamala is ahead of Gavin.
He's only getting 15% of the Latino vote. Kamala gets 50%. With blacks, even worse. Kamala has over half the blacks. I guess pandering like this didn't work.
So obsessed with basketball and baseball, divorced, classic divorce family. My dad was great later. My mom was 19, pregnant, and divorced a few years later with 2 kids, came from no money, and just hustled, you know, worked hard, grinding every single day, 2.5 jobs, no bull. It was also about paying the bills, man. And it was just like hustling. And so I was out there.
And in my opinion, this is why I thought Gavin did better than Kamala as far as on-stage presence, communication, but who knows? Again, polls are polls. It's very difficult to know if one is accurate as far as who is the sample size, what are the questions, and yeah, the last time I took a statistics class, I mean, man, that was like years ago, so. Polling sample size, that's the buzzword for polls.
She looks at the crowds on this book tour where she's packing auditoriums. She looks at book sales, which I'll give her credit. She sold a lot of books, and she sees these polls and thinks, why not me? Here's the irony of this. Democrats aren't attacking her because they think that she'll implode for the 3rd time. Remember in 19, she never even made it to Iowa. She just deflated.
Essentially finished in last place.
Correct. And then obviously what happened in 24, I think the best thing she had was it was a short campaign. The longer it went, people think the worse she would have done. So people say, why should I bother wasting breath attacking her and alienating black women when she's going to do it for herself?
Okay, interesting. All right. If I find a clip where we see like a high-ranking Democrat official who really stands up for Kamala, I will look for that. But again, as of right now, we don't know what exactly the move is for Kamala Harris, but she's on the radar for a lot of people, politically speaking. And speaking of on my radar, again, not an endorsement, but I think we should be paying attention to this political race. Here is Spencer Pratt calling out the mayor of Los Angeles. But this is what intrigues me. He does not support ICE, but I will let Spencer speak for himself.
I don't want ICE in LA. Nobody wants ICE in LA except Karen Basura, apparently, because the way you keep ICE out of LA is by enforcing the law, not defying it.
Which, by the way, I think Spencer Pratt may have seen the polling and has developed a talking point, in my opinion, is a strong talking point. Again, I am not saying that I love Spencer Pratt and I'm voting for him or nothing like that. But his talking point makes sense when you correlate what's happening right now. Democrats don't like ICE, but they see coming into the country illegally as a crime. And so remember, he said, I don't want ICE here, but here's the problem.
Apparently, because the way you keep ICE out of LA is by enforcing the law, not defying it. I look at what Mayor Lurie did in San Francisco, clearly no friend of the Trump administration, but he called the president and made a deal. He vowed to have SFPD crack down on crime, and the president vowed to keep ICE out of the city. And notice what you don't see? No riots, no crazy videos of ICE agents having chaotic arrests. That's how it's done.
And that's true. In 2025, for about a week or two, we saw like a bunch of clashes just on one street. And I was covering that. And then all of a sudden, when was the last time you guys saw a video of San Francisco of any sort of clashes? And again, I really do think Spencer Pratt is paying attention here. Not an endorsement, but I think he's paying attention.
Having chaotic arrests, that's how it's done. Why is it that only certain cities are having all this chaos with ICE? They are in a lot of cities, but there are only problems in places like LA and Minneapolis. It's not a Democrat-Republican thing. Memphis doesn't have chaos. Liberal San Francisco doesn't have the chaos, unlike LA. So what's the common denominator? It's activist mayors using their city, their residents, their businesses as fodder for their political grandstanding, and people suffer as a result. By failing to enforce the law, Karen Basura is guaranteeing that ICE will flood the city. Unlike reckless mayors like Karen Basura, adults put their egos aside. They live in the real world and they make deals to protect their communities. And that's exactly how I will end the ICE raids in LA. Our city is not a political playhouse. It's our home.
All right, so that is Spencer Pratt. And again, I do think he's paying attention. I think he saw what Tom Homan said. If you don't want ICE in your city, either get out of our way or cooperate. That is like, he says that in almost every single interview I've ever watched of Tom Homan. All right, moving forward, we're going to get to some political comments from your favorite politicians. We're going to go on both sides of the spectrum here. The SAVE Act, of course, that is front and center right now as far as will that get passed, will it not get passed? Here's a recent comment.
We're going to be fighting for the SAVE Act, and I'll tell you why this is so important. We've passed it twice in the House, and we will pass it again. The SAVE Act.
Spencer Pratt is running for mayor of Los Angeles, for whoever asked. I saw that comment.
Just simply says you have to have verification of citizenship to register to vote. That's about a 90-10 issue on many of the polls in this country, and we're going to enhance it by what the president calls the Save America Act. And so it would be proof of citizenship to register to vote and voter ID, which is also about an 80 or 90% issue on the polling nationwide, depending on who you talk to. These are very important things to ensure that our elections are free and fair and safe. And that's a critical component of maintaining a constitutional republic. So this is a big priority for not just House Republicans, but for the American people.
And yeah, we have verified that as far as what the recent stats and polling says. The vast majority of Americans, whether Republican, Democrat, or whatever you want to call yourself, seem to lean in the favor of you should have identification or there should be better parameters and safeguards to vote. And so I would not call what he said an exaggeration. I would actually say that has been verifiable so far. And I am still waiting to find a politician as far as who opposes the SAVE Act. As to there seems to be no acknowledgement of that fact, but there seems to be, I don't want to call it a deflection, but leaning into the talking point of, well, here's the problem with the SAVE Act. If you got married and then divorced and you have to change your name, it can become a headache and problematic, and that's not fair and right. We have seen that in the last two live streams as far as talking points against using polling to support the SAVE Act.
Guys, the mental gymnastics of some of my colleagues never ceases to amaze me. So the same elected officials, i.e. Chuck Schumer and company, that don't want voter ID are saying that not only do they want ICE to show identification, but also they are repeating this idea, this conspiracy theory, it's blue and on, that President Trump is going to steal the midterms. So let's play into their little game here. So if you were really afraid of election theft, wouldn't you want voter ID? Wouldn't you want that? Election integrity, security? Nope, but they don't want that. They just want to lie to their voters. But their voters, Democrats, they actually want voter ID. In fact, black, Hispanic, Asian, white, we all want it. They should probably do it, but they're not going to. But we will, which is why we're going to win the midterms.
Okay, we'll see, and we will be covering all of that, of course. All right, now this has been sort of a little one-sided as far as bringing up talking points, but here is Congressman Cory Booker. And there is a tunnel that is being built in his state. And apparently there seems to be some issues, and they are blaming President Trump for it. Again, we're going to go across the spectrum of different talking points and pushback. Here we go.
Busiest rail stretch in all of North America. This is all being put on the line now by a president, it seems, to just want things named after him. By a president that has no good policy reasons for doing it. This is sabotage. This is political hostage taking. This is actually one of the worst acts of extortion I've ever seen.
Why, as a president, you would punish this region of the country, responsible for almost 20% of the nation's GDP, building the future of America right here. Why you would attack that, I do not know, but I will tell you what I've heard. I've heard it's because he wants Dulles Airport named after him. I've heard it's because he wants Penn Station named after him. I've heard that that's what he cares about more than the people on this job site.
Now, I did fact check this. I did not find any indication that that is true. Again, she is saying I heard, but I did fact check this. I looked into it to give you guys the information. Even if you hate Donald Trump, just so you are aware, I cannot find anywhere where he has said this or has indicated the reason why there's financial issues here is because he wants that named after him. All right, let's continue. Here is Senator Jeff Merkley of Oregon. There's a lot of action right now going on in Oregon. Actually, we do have some clips from the governor of Oregon a bit later in the show. But Oregon has really been popping up on my radar as far as pushback against federal agents. We have some judicial actions against federal agents, such as at the ICE Portland building. Limitations on the use of tear gas and pepper balls, unless under immediate threat. But let's get to this.
Here, we're witnessing Trump's secret police in action as Trump's lawless federal agents show up without identification. They're harming, killing our friends, our neighbors, disappearing people, denying people they detain access to attorneys. Here's what I've done recently to demand accountability from ICE. I teamed up with Representative Salinas on the ICE and CBP Constitutional Accountability Act. A bill gives individual Americans the ability to sue the government when Trump's lawless federal agents trample their civil rights.
Now, I am very curious if you guys would support this or not support it. What I will say is I think Oregon as a state is the front runner as far as developing these types of laws. The state of Oregon a few months ago was actually indicating we might start to not sue Homeland Security, but individual agents in Homeland Security for actions we might seem like you broke the law in our state. So now we're looking at this on the federal level, but again, coming from Oregon.
And I worked with Senator Markey and Representative Jayapal on the ICE Out of Our Faces Act, a bill to ban ICE from weaponizing facial recognition technology to surveil and intimidate people in our communities. And I stood firm to say no to a blank check for DHS and ICE as lawless agents terrorize our communities. I want to keep fighting to protect our communities. I never thought I'd see secret police in the United States of America roving patrols, unidentified, putting people into vans, unmarked, license plates taken off of them, disappearing them. This is what secret police do around the world, and we have to stop it here in the United States. We need accountability. We need transparency. We have to save our republic.
All right, so let me know what you guys think about that. I will point out that in Oregon, there seems to be... what's the wording I should use here? a lack of federal agents doing deportation operations currently in Oregon. There are indicators, like, first off, we're hardly seeing any clips of pushback or legal observers, if you will, find or talk about ICE agents. I've seen some other sources where even legal observers are saying we're not seeing too many of ICE agents out in the public right now. So I just want to point that out. We are getting indicators that ICE is not overly active in Oregon, but that doesn't mean they're not going to be active, because up in Washington, they're super active right now.
There's a desire to keep these people here. They were brought in intentionally during the Biden administration. This was an intentional importation of millions of people to sanctuary cities, and now they want to make it impossible.
This is Senator Tim Sheehy.
For us to deport them, despite the fact that that's what the American people have not only voted for. The polls to this day, even in the wake of the Minneapolis mistakes, to this day, the American people still support securing the border and deporting illegal immigrants. So this effort basically stalls that, makes it impossible to do widespread deportations, which the American people have said they want, and that's why it's going to be a non-starter.
And it is true that under the Biden administration, there were record crossings that went down before Biden left office. But in terms of being intentional, I know that is a theory among some on the right, but there's not evidence to show.
Yeah, at this point, I think there's just no denying that number under the Biden administration. But whenever we hear some sort of pushback or a counter talking point, is that a lot of times, like you're hearing on CNN right now, is that, well, those were, the deportations that were occurring in that administration were more targeted.
That they intentionally wanted the border to be open to people just, coming here illegally. I just want to follow up on your point.
I don't think that's, Pamela, I understand
that's your position,
what is the evidence
but
that's not, the facts don't really belie that, because they provided apps to bring them in. They provided massive amounts of taxpayer funding to not just incentivize them to come, but then keep them in sanctuary cities. I mean, the policies from the federal government down to local government incentivized mass migration. And I don't know how you say that any other way than that was intentional. It was intentional acts from the federal government to state governments to city governments to encourage this mass migration. If it wasn't intentional, how come the Trump administration was able to close that border with a snap of a finger in a matter of days, which is...
All right, yeah. So let me know how you guys feel about that. As of right now, there are a handful of senators who will say, or Democrats, politicians who will say the border was an issue. Senator Fetterman obviously is probably the most vocal about that. But do not get it twisted. Senator Fetterman is not a fan or happy with Kristi Noem. Keep that in mind. Moving forward.
You want to spend time talking about this for the next 6 months?
I think election integrity is critically important to talk about.
But I'm being serious. Like economy, yes. Venezuela, Iran, do Republicans want to spend their time on this, as they're literally getting booed at events over ICE?
Yes, they should spend their time on this. The president came out yesterday, emphatically endorsed the Save America Act, which is sponsored by Senator Mike Lee and Chip Roy. That is a key priority for them right now, and I think that they will spend time on it, Audie, because we know we have a situation in this country where election integrity, whether you're a Democrat and a Republican, depending on who wins or loses an election, you have doubts about the outcome.
Yeah. We're going to be hearing a lot about election integrity for sure. All right, let's move forward from that.
By targeting...
All right, let's talk about Senator Slotkin. If you guys are unaware, Senator Slotkin, we've already talked about this in yesterday's show, but she made a 3-minute video indicating I will not be cooperating with this investigation you guys are doing on me, as far as accusing me of the video I made and my intentions behind it. Here's what she had to say recently.
What the DOJ wants of you and what you've told them?
Well, first the FBI and then the Department of Justice, contacted us late last year, and again right after Christmas break, wanting us to sit down for an interview and as part of an inquiry. And I think it's hard not to interpret that, when the president of the United States tweets over a dozen times that you should be investigated, arrested, and ultimately hanged, that, it was a direct response to the commander-in-chief pushing that agenda. So obviously we had to hire lawyers, and you need to figure out a whole strategy. And we've been talking to the Department of Justice lawyers, but they kept pushing and kept coming for this interview. And we just made the decision. I'm not gonna just comply when something is so obviously an attempt to weaponize the federal government.
Okay, so yeah, I'm curious what you guys have to say about that. As far as non-compliance or sitting down for that interview. And it should be noted, like, she worked for the CIA, right? So that's what she has to say about that. And now we're going to get to a bunch of politicians recently decided to visit ICE facilities, and they are saying, I will let them speak for themselves, but I just want to point out, just out of nowhere in the past, like, 2 days, a bunch of members of Congress are visiting these facilities.
Hi, it's Congressman Jason Crow and Congressman Joe Neguse, and
Which the current policy is you have to give a week's notice.
Completed an oversight visit of the Geo Detention Center in Aurora. We prevailed in a court case on Monday to restore transparency and to regain access to do critical congressional oversight, and that's what we just did.
Yeah, well, to Jason's point, the court ruling was incredibly important in terms of ensuring that we're able to engage in oversight. Oversight matters, accountability matters, and that's why a court ruled on Monday, and we're here on Thursday doing oversight here at the detention facility, and we intend to keep doing that and intend to continue pursuing our lawsuits so that every member of Congress in the United States Congress is able to conduct the oversight that they're entitled to do under the law.
Now, we did not hear how the oversight went, but we were just told oversight was conducted. And speaking of oversight, this is Congresswoman Maxine Dexter. Maxine Dexter representing Oregon, but she's in Texas right now. Let's see what she has to say.
Maxine Dexter, Oregon's 3rd, here at the Pearsall Adult Detention Facility in Pearsall, Texas. Going to meet with Representative Castro this morning and do a tour that has been duly vetted and approved. So looking forward to actually being able to do my oversight duty, which I was not able to do yesterday at the Dilley Family Detention Facility. Thank you to all who have reached out with your encouragement and your emphatic pleas for us to bring them home. We are absolutely going back today, and that is our intention with the wind at our backs and your support. So continue to stay loud and pray for the Crespo-Gonzalez family.
Now, it should be noted, just for your information, again, I don't know why she's in Texas. I don't know how that works, or, obviously she's doing oversight with one of her colleagues. There is no ICE detention facility in the sense of like a long-term facility, just so you guys are aware. The ICE facility, often referenced in Oregon, the Portland ICE building, that is a short stay facility, no longer than 12 hours, and then they typically will get transferred wherever, usually up to Washington. So keep that in mind. Again, maybe that's why she's in Texas. I have no idea, but just wanted to point that out. Moving forward, again, another Oregon lawmaker.
Suzanne Bonamici, Oregon's 1st District. I'm at the airport in D.C., heading to Oregon for the weekend. I voted against the funding for the Department of Homeland Security, and right now there are negotiations going on about that budget. And here's some of the things I'm looking for. First, ICE out. We don't need the swarms of ICE agents in our communities. Second, masks off, body cameras on. We need accountability. And we need to claw back. $75 billion went to ICE. $65 billion went to Customs and Border Patrol in the Big Ugly Bill. Let's use those funds for education, economic development, and things that help, not hurt our communities.
So as of right now, the Republicans in Senate and in Congress, I mean, these are non-negotiable. The no mask thing, recently I saw a Pew Research poll that said the majority of Americans do not support the mask on ICE agents, regardless of political affiliation. But that makes sense to me, considering Director Todd Lyons also does not support the masks. So maybe he voted in that poll. But again, as far as the masks are concerned, Tom Homan had a meeting with lawmakers and said, no, we're not budging on that. We have to keep the masks on. And as far as ICE out, that's a very vague general term. I don't know if she means abolish of ICE or like removal of ICE in certain states, but let's continue. Those are all non-negotiable. I'm not seeing a single Republican who is willing to get on board with those talking points she's mentioning from the list of 10 demands.
I just showed up at Camp East, Montana, here in my community, which is...
Sorry, this is Representative Escobar.
The largest immigration detention facility in the country and the most expensive, $1.24 billion. Many of the chronic issues that I have reported out to the public and to members of my committee persist. What is absolutely clear is that the private company running this immigration detention facility is getting worse, not better. And meanwhile, they are continuing to pocket American taxpayer dollars, making their profits while not delivering on what the American taxpayers are supposed to be getting. Why should you care? Because your tax dollars are basically enriching a private corporation.
Now, one way the city of Portland has managed to address what they would call an issue, if you guys are unaware, the city of Portland realizes that a lot of these buildings are leased out or owned by an individual, private citizen. And so what they did in the city of Portland, they have this ordinance where they can fine the building owner because he's a resident of Oregon and a resident of Portland. And so the mayor of Portland indicated we're going to start to invoke that policy where if tear gas is used and there's damages in the area, or if somebody gets injured, or if the police keep getting called, we are going to fine the building owner because he's a private citizen. He's not the U.S. government. So just so you guys are aware, some politicians or lawmakers have managed to find these loopholes in order to go after the private sector or the private part of this process. Now, I do think that will definitely be going to court if that does get invoked and we start to see some fines, but keep in mind, that is happening right now in Portland.
All at the same time that our costs are going up, healthcare is being taken away by the administration, nutrition programs are being cut, and furthermore, the administration is building yet more facilities like this, enriching more private companies. Here in El Paso, they've just bought 3 warehouses where they're planning to hold 8,500 human beings. And if the same level of care exists here, they are not going to care about providing people with any dignity whatsoever. And they're going to take your money and give it to a private corporation that is only getting richer.
Okay, so let me know how you guys feel about that. Do you guys want to hear from Captain Mark Kelly? Let's go here real quick. Like I said, we're seeing a bunch of people talk about these facilities.
Suzanne Bonamici, Oregon's 1st District. I'm here today at the Tacoma, Washington ICE detention facility.
Like I mentioned before, I don't know why Maxine Dexter went down to Texas. Maybe she made a prior agreement since she represents Oregon. But here we have an Oregon lawmaker who is in Washington. Like I acknowledged before, there is no large-scale ICE facility in Oregon or detention facility.
I'm here today at the Tacoma, Washington ICE detention facility. We came for a scheduled tour, and I tell you, they knew we were coming. They made it look nice, but we know it's not always like that. What isn't nice is what's happening to people here and in our communities. We need ICE out of our communities. The stories I heard today from people who are surrounded by ICE agents in their car, brought here to detention. One gentleman has been here for months away from his wife and 4 children. He was surrounded by ICE at a gas station in Oregon. And a woman who's here separated from her sick husband and her children, who did nothing nothing wrong. She cleans houses for a living. She was surrounded by ICE and brought here to Tacoma to the detention facility. We need to do everything we can to help people who are wrongfully detained, but we also need ICE out of our communities. The policies of this
So again, I think this is where a lot of voters will get confused. And I keep telling you guys this. You will not hear a politician who says, we don't want crime in our, state or towns or cities. But when you get to if the criminal is an illegal immigrant and ICE, their main task is to take care of illegal immigration, that's where we get to the crossroad of like, okay, so do you want crime? Do you not want crime? And again, you hear these talking points specifically mainly with sanctuary politicians or politicians who come from sanctuary states or jurisdictions.
Competent Department of Homeland Security are harming people across Oregon and across the country. Kristi Noem is incompetent as Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security. This is on her watch. She needs to either resign or be impeached. So ICE out, masks off, body cameras on, but we need to do everything we can to end these inhumane policies of this administration.
Okay, so again, if you're new to this show, we tend to go to the other spectrums of our algorithms or see what the other side is saying or indicating, just so we can get an idea of what the talking points are, and you can have an informed opinion. Okay, now speaking of Oregon, here is the governor of Oregon. I've been covering Oregon for quite a while, and in my opinion, they are the most unique sanctuary state, in my opinion, sort of developing their own laws, further strengthening their sanctuary policies is the way that they would talk about it. But here's what she had to say recently, the governor.
Hello, Oregon. Governor Kotek here.
Sorry about that.
I just wanted you to know
really
that I'm
loud.
sending a letter, along with mayors across Oregon, to Secretary Kristi Noem and ICE Director Tom Homan. We're calling for an immediate halt to federal immigration enforcement in Oregon until all use of force incidents across the country, including those in Minneapolis and Portland, are fully investigated and those responsible are held accountable. When law enforcement uses unnecessary force, there must be full accountability. Instead, our federal government continues aggressive actions and rhetoric that undermines trust and puts people exercising their First Amendment rights at risk. And that's just not acceptable. So things need to change. The federal government needs to rebuild trust with Americans. What they're doing is making all of us less safe. Oregon will uphold our values and our sanctuary law and focus our resources on real public safety. And to our immigrant and refugee community,
Like I told you guys, you will always hear that from every politician, and I think the majority of us would say that's a good thing. We want to focus on public safety, indicating, we don't want crime. But if the crime involves an illegal immigrant, again, you will get differing answers because sanctuary policies would not allow for certain things to happen as far as cooperation and communication. Very generous $5 donation from good old boy. Their only reason they're doing this because Trump is in office. What's your opinion of this stupid crap? Says good old boy. My opinion is I think this is the first time sanctuary policies have ever been shown to the public. And what sanctuary policies are, as far as it's called a sanctuary state. But when you start to dig into what a sanctuary state is, I think the everyday American, by the way, the majority of Americans don't live in sanctuary states or even hear this kind of stuff. You hear it like in the news, but this is not I don't want to call it a problem. This is not something people deal with every day, the mass majority of Americans. But now I think the everyday American is hearing and seeing this stuff, and I think when you look at the polling and stats, I think Americans are questioning what's happening here and trying to figure out what exactly is a sanctuary state and city. That is the reason why I started this YouTube channel, was to try and figure that out, and I'm still trying to figure it out. And so I think the Trump administration, they're exposing what is happening in sanctuary states, where there is a clear division between police forces, local police forces, and federal agents. And in my opinion, I think the vast American public who supports no crime, they are questioning a lot of what's happening here.
please hear this clearly. This is your home, and we stand with you. And to the Trump administration, this message is also clear. ICE activities must stop now until there is full accountability.
Okay, and then also keep in mind, not every Democrat is on board with sanctuary states and sanctuary cities as far as how far they take things. Again, we can reference Senator Fetterman, but there are others who say, like, we can't abolish ICE. There has to be some sort of protection. We can't open a border. So keep in mind, there are Democrat voters, Democrat politicians who would actually side with the Trump administration as far as learning about sanctuary policies and then seeing what the public reaction is to the policies. Now, I already did a dedicated live stream on this yesterday, but if you guys are not aware, Mayor Mamdani signed an executive order. Here are the main bullet points of this executive order. Prohibiting ICE entering New York City property without judicial warrants. Just a quick recap for those who didn't see. Enhancement of privacy protections to avoid New Yorkers' private data from being unlawfully accused by the federal government. A public safety audit report submitted to the New York City mayor to ensure essential New York City agencies comply with city laws. The creation of an interagency committee to coordinate policy in the event of a major crisis. Now, I still have no idea what a major crisis means in terms of this policy. I think it has to do with if a federal surge happens in New York City. This might be what major crisis means, but yeah, major crisis. And we already saw this. Yeah, let's just watch this real quick. Again, we're seeing a lot of indicators from the state of Oregon as far as this pushback against the Trump administration. And I do think they are kind of leading the charge of how far you can take things as a sanctuary state.
Hello, Oregon. Governor Kotek here.
As far as crossing that line from a state level policy going into a government level policy, as many of you are aware, it's known as a superseding.
We've all seen the highly aggressive federal immigration enforcement activities that are pushing our neighbors into the shadows. Parents are avoiding schools and healthcare visits, kids are being traumatized, and communities are less safe. I'm listening to Oregonians and taking action. I recently signed an executive order creating a new Interagency Council for Immigrant and Refugee Coordination at the state. Its job is simple. Make sure state agencies work together clearly and consistently to protect and support immigrant and refugee families across Oregon. This council will reduce confusion, close communication and service gaps, and make sure people get the help they need with dignity and care. You know, immigrants are our friends, they're our neighbors, and they're essential to Oregon's success. They are Oregon. And I'm going to do everything I can to protect families, children, and our communities in every way I can. In Oregon, we look out for each other, always.
All right. So again, I will be doing more research on what this is all about. Oregon does have different states of emergencies right now, depending on what county you're in, as far as ICE activity or federal activity in their county. So I will try to report that story as accurate as possible. So those are pretty much all of the relevant updates for you guys. I tried to be as fair as possible, give all the different talking points, let both sides speak, and I hope you guys can now have a more informed opinion or at baseline understanding what some of the arguments are. Now, also keep in mind over the weekend, things get a little quiet. Going into Sunday, tomorrow, my live stream will be in the afternoon. I go to church in the morning. But Sundays, we typically see a lot of back and forth in the media, so I will be looking out for that as well. All right. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. I really appreciate all of your support, joining these live streams in the morning, being a part of the conversation, seeking truth, and seeking peace. That's what we're all about here, so I thank you guys so much for everything. And like I always say, make sure to please pray for peace. I think it's very valuable if we can do that, or seek peace. We definitely need that right now. So I thank you guys so much for everything. And yeah, God bless all of you guys. As a Christian, I have to say it, seek Christ. And yeah, I'll be going to church tomorrow. And so hopefully you guys do as well. But if not, even if you guys hate the Trump administration, even if you hate these talking points, we still want to have a conversation. I am curious. You know, we like to see all the different sides here. So God bless all of you guys, and we'll see you all later. Again, pray for peace. We need that. Thank you.